Hello, welcome to the Python series for absolute beginners. My name is Abdul Kudus. I'm your course instructor for this course and I'll be taking you through this. For Python, we first have to install Python and also Visual Studio Code, which is the editor we'll be using for this series. But there is a separate video on this channel that actually takes you through the installation of Python and also setting up your Python environment in VS Code. I'm just going to come and get started with the coding. So let's go on. To start with Python, you first have to create a file. So let's just create a file. I'm going to call mine main, and we're going to add .py at the end. The .py just means that the file is a Python file. It's just how Python stores its file. It's just the file, the extension Python. So let's press enter. So to begin with Python, there are basic stuff you have to know, like the print statement. What is the print statement? The print statement is an inbuilt function in Python that allows us to print stuff onto the console. And speaking of the console, what is the console? The console just looks like a black space in which commands are run, and also stuff like the command prompt. Let's show you what the console looks like. When I click on this button, you're going to see this thing pops up trying to show you what the console is. These are stuff that I've been running before recording this video. Don't get scared, come back to this later. Now let's start with the print statement. The print statement just have the basic syntax of just writing print, and then in between the bracket, is what you want to print to the console. So we have different types of things that we want to print to this console. We can want to print strings, integers, floats, and many other data types, which we'll be talking about later in this course. For now, let's just write hello world. This means that we are just trying to print hello world to our console. And also in Python, double quotes and single quotes can be used interchangeably, but there are parts or situations whereby single quotes will be more needed or double quotes will be more needed. But for now, let's just print another hello world but with single quotes. Let's save the file and click on run. Let's just go to our console and see what's actually going on. And on our console, we can see running, and this stuff is just trying to tell us in which directory we are in. This means we're in our C drive, users, HP, desktop. On desktop we have a folder called Python, which is this, and in Python we have main.py, which is this, and this prints hello 2 times. As you can see, there wasn't any difference between the double quotes and the single quote, as it's all printed hello world to our console. So for now, let's talk about the situations in which you prefer one over the other. Consider a situation where I want to print daddy's car. So I type in print double quote and let me write daddy's car, not hello world. Daddy's car. As you can see, everything seems alright. There isn't any red line trying to show errors. If I run this, prints daddy's car, which means everything was alright. What if I try to run this program again, but in this case I try to run it with single quotes rather. So as you can see, daddy's car over here has some red line showing over here. This means that this is not a valid Python code. As you can see, trying to look at this code, Python is trying to understand it this way. Hey, trying to print daddy, there is single quote here, there is another single quote here, so I'm ending the string. So all this are gibberish stuff, and this actually brings this error into our code. So let's just delete this. So in this case, we want to print daddy's car, and here we need single quotes. Let's assume we want to run this again, but in this case let's just do something which doesn't make sense, I know, but let's just try to bring a double quote here. So let's say like daddy's car with a double quote. So in this case, as you can see, we are also having errors over here because Python just tries to understand it as this is double quotes, this is another double quote, so I'm ending this string and all this stuff are errors. So in this case, a single quote will be more preferred. So single quote here and a single quote here. And that's a Python, valid Python code. As you can see, all the red lines are gone. Save this, run it. See, that is the double quotes. So now let's move on to escape sequences. What are escape sequences? Escape sequences are a way of, let's say, trying to escape certain characters in our print statements or in our variables or whatever. But for now, we're doing print statements. What if I want to print daddy's car, but I'm trying to use single quotes outside, and single quotes outside? So for this, in order to prevent this single quote from acting as if it's the end of the string, we are going to put a backslash over here. Backslashes is the syntax for escape sequences. This is trying to tell us that we are trying to escape this single quote over here. So it means the single quote is not the end of the string, it's just a normal single quote that's part of a string. So when I save this, I print this, you see daddy's car. There wasn't no error, and we used both single quotes outside. What if I want to do a double quote again here, another double quote here, and a double quote here? See, as you can see, there is no error. Let me just delete this. Means this is trying to escape this double quotes, trying to make it part of the string. So when I save this and run this, you get daddy's car with a double quote. There are many escape sequences that we'll be learning later in this course, and one of such is the new line character. Let's just delete this for now and put an n over here. As you can see, the backslash n is colored a little bit differently from the actual string. You can see the actual string looks more reddish, and this looks more like yellowish or orange in color. So this means that this is not actually part of the string, but it's an escape sequence. What the new line character does is everything that follows the new line character will be printed on a separate line. So when I save this and run it, you can see it prints daddy and s car on a separate line. So this is another new line, another escape sequence. There are more escape sequences that we'll be looking on this channel, but later. So now let's move on to the concept of variables. Variables are more like, let's say, blocks in memory where we store our information. Just assume the memory to be a giant block which has been divided into several partitions. Each partition is therefore a variable. In this case, just assume that way. So we can put information in different parts of this block. So we can have many variables to fill up these blocks and just put in different variables over there. So variables hold different information such as strings, numbers, which are integers and floats, and we'll be looking at data types later in this course. So now let's look at how a variable is declared in Python. To declare a variable, just write the variable name, let's say name, break an equal sign, and then whatever we want to pass inside. In this case, I want to pass my name. So as you can see, name is equal to Kudus. What this does is takes Kudus and assigns it to the variable name in that block of memory. So when I come down here and I print name, what do you think will happen? Let's find out. So you can see it prints Kudus. It didn't print name, but it printed Kudus. Means name is a block in our memory and it contains Kudus. So it just tries to print the contents of name. But if we print name this way, in this case, we are not printing the variable name, but we are rather printing a string name. So if I do this, prints name, but this case we want just name. So also variables can be described any way we want. There are rules governing variables, but I'm trying to mean the naming that we want to give our variables. It just solely depends on us. Let's say trying to put Kudus in name doesn't mean I have to declare this as name before I can put my name into name. I can call it age and put Kudus inside. This is perfectly valid Python code. As you can see, any red line trying to show us that this is an error. But most often, we would like to give our variables more descriptive names, such that if someone looks at it, that person already has an idea of what is being stored. And then also, if you've written a Python code for, like, let's say a month ago, when you come back later, we can still understand what's going on, because we know this is name, so it stores name, but we don't see age and it's storing our name. So in this case, when you have age, you probably want to store stuff like 49 or 9, anything. And in this case, when you print age, prints 9 to us on the console. So now let's deal with the rules governing naming of our variables. There are rules governing variables. So naming of variables have, I think, some few rules that we have to know. The first thing is we can't use keywords. What are keywords? Keywords are words that are already in our Python. Let's say in Python, they have already been defined by the creators of the Python language. Something such as for. If you check the color of the for, it is colored somehow a little bit differently from when I try to call something like name. See, the name is colored white, but the for is colored something differently, which means for is a keyword defined in Python, and therefore we can't call our names, our variables for. Also, we have several keywords in Python, such as if, else, a lot of them that we'll be dealing with later in this course. But for now, let's just assume there are keywords in which we can use in Python. Secondly, we can start naming our variables with numbers. Let's say 6 name. This is not right. As you can see, there is a red line over here trying to show us that we can't do this in Python. We only want to start naming our variables with letters or underscores, etc. These are some of the basic rules that we can have in Python. And also, we can have spaces in between our variables. Let's say my name. As you can see, there is already a red line here trying to tell us that we can have spaces in between our variables. And in order to give more descriptive naming to our variables, like let's say my name, you're going to use something like an underscore to show my name, or maybe you want to use a capital letter over here like my name, like this, and this perfectly valid code. These are some of the rules governing naming of variables in Python. So now let's move on to the concept of data types. Data types in Python are more of like trying to describe the different type of information that we can store in our variables, or we can print or work with in Python. There are different types of variables. We have strings, which are more of like series of characters, like let's say my name is Kudus or Kus, anything. This is a string. For a string, we always use quotes, either double or single quotes, to show that this is a string. If I write name is equal to Kus without the string, without that, this is trying to mean that we already have a variable called Kus somewhere, and it contains a value which are trying to copy the value into name, something like this. Let's say Kus is equal to 5. So in this case, it means we already have a variable called Kus in which you have 5, and we are trying to copy the content of Kus into name. If not, if we remove this, this is going to give us an error. As you can see, a yellow line over here. But when I undo this, see the yellow line goes, because this is perfectly valid Python code. Now, the next data type we are going to talk about are numbers. We have different types of numbers. We have floating point numbers and we have integers. So we have integers and we also have floats. So integers are numbers with no decimal places, like whole numbers, so -1, 0, 5, 1000, all the way. So let's say age, in this case an integer, let's say 6. And let's deal with floating point numbers. Floating point numbers are numbers with decimal points. So something like, let's say, height 6.7, and this is a floating point number. This means it's a decimal point. There's a number with no decimal point, so that's an integer, and this is a string. There are more data types that we'll be talking about later in this course. Some include lists, tuples, dictionaries, etc. We'll be talking about them later in this course, but for now we're dealing with three basic ones: that names, which are strings, integers, and floating point numbers. This video is getting long, and I'm going to cut it over here and record the next part of the video in the part 2. Hope to see all of you in part 2. Thank you.